Joining me now to discuss is Republican Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi. He is the ranking member on the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator, thanks for taking the time this morning.
Well, thank you for having me. And let me say hello from Mississippi. And I have to do a shout out to my friends down at the barbershop who I saw just a few moments ago and who I hope are listening from the barbershop.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sending my hello to them as well from here in Washington. You have been sounding the alarm on Ukraine for some time. You are a supporter of additional military and financial assistance. As you know, there's $33 billion that President Biden has proposed. You have Democrats considering tying this to COVID relief. If that were to happen, you have some Republicans who would say they would want some sort of line in there about Title 42. I wonder, given the urgency, should this bill come to the floor clean and independent of any other provisions?
It should come to the floor clean without any unrelated issues. What you just described, adding border type issues, adding COVID type issues is a good way to slow it down. And on a bipartisan basis, we need to get this $33 billion. We need to vet it and make sure it's all good spending and good aid for our friends in Ukraine, but we need to do it quickly. I'd like to see it done next week. And the way to do that is to leave unrelated issues for another day.
There's a dynamic to this war, as I've been covering it, my colleagues, and I've been to Ukraine a couple times, that's changed in terms of the rhetoric on both sides in recent weeks. You have the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin talking not just about defending Ukraine, but weakening Russia so it can't attack other countries. And you have Russia, in turn, describing this now as a proxy war between NATO and the U.S. and Russia. I wonder, are you concerned that this war, the danger of this war escalating beyond Ukraine, is growing?
Well, we're always mindful that a war could escalate. The reason that it's taking place at all, of course, is the war crimes by Vladimir Putin and the completely unprovoked invasion of a neighboring country. So, yes, there's a risk. We need to be careful about that. I would say probably the Secretary of Defense chose his words carefully, and frankly, to the extent that Russia is less able to continue invading neighbors as they've done in Georgia, as they've done in other places in Eastern Europe, that's a good thing if Russia isn't strong enough to invade neighbors anymore.
You have written extensively about China and Taiwan and how that relates to what we've seen with Russia and Ukraine, and encouraging arming Taiwan now, in effect not waiting to flood with weapons until later. I wonder, the U.S. has said explicitly regarding the war in Ukraine that it will not get into conflict with Russian forces. Is that a mistake when it comes to China and Taiwan? Given China's aspirations there and threat, should the U.S. state explicitly it would not defend Taiwan, or state the opposite, in fact?
Okay, well, our policy in Republican and Democratic administrations has been one of ambiguity, and we're staying with that. I think that's probably going to be our policy for a while. Now, there's no secret in Beijing that the United States wants Taiwan to be defended, and we're making no secret of that. The point that Senator Graham and I were making earlier this week in our op-ed in the Wall Street Journal is that with a country like China, sanctions aren't going to work very well. But with just 1% more of gross domestic product in Taiwan, we can sell them the weapons they need to basically discourage a Chinese invasion. It's 100 miles of sea, not very far. They're way away from us and hard to resupply. So what we ought to be doing immediately is helping China get ready for an attack and an invasion, which we hope will never happen because Taiwan's strong enough to defend it.
Okay, but back to domestic issues here, one that I'm sure folks in the barbershop are top of mind for them, and that is inflation. You've been critical of inflation rates, and you blame the Biden administration for that. I wonder if Republicans win control of the House, perhaps the Senate, in the fall, what practical changes, practical policies will Republicans implement to bring down inflation?
Well, it would really help to have a president who wasn't at war with American oil and gas. I mean, really, here's what happened. The first month of the Biden administration, this country was poised to come out of the pandemic. The economy was ready to roar. And what did Biden and the Democrats do? They poured $1.9 trillion onto an already heated economy. And everyone, Democrat and Republican, that had watched history could predict this was going to give us this huge inflation. So now we have wage growth at 5.5%, but inflation at 8.5%. So it's a 3% reduction for every working American. So the one thing we would do is try to open up oil and gas exploration and development here in the United States, where we're blessed beyond measure by leading the world there, and also quit pouring new money on an already overheated economy. Frankly,
but to be fair, Senator,
it's hard
the
to get out
profligate
of it if the Fed is now involved.
The profligate spending did not begin on January 21st, 2021. As you know, under the national debt grew by almost $8 trillion during Trump's time in office. There were tax cuts. There were also COVID relief bills then. Is this a multi-administration problem here? In other words, did two administrations pour too much money in?
Okay. We passed unanimously, Republican and Democrat, almost unanimously, with one or two dissenting votes, the COVID relief packages that were needed in the year 2020 when the economy was falling like a rock. And I don't think anybody apologizes for that. Then at the end of the year, we had the vaccines. We were coming out of it, and we were learning to reopen the economy. The spending that occurred in January and February of 2021 was entirely different. And so, yeah, absolutely. We all were involved in rescuing the economy from falling off a cliff in 2020. That's an entirely different matter.
Senator Roger Wicker, enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.